Time for the next project. The Tamiya 1/35 scale Jeep Willys MB quarter ton 4x4 truck. Hi, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and my next inbox and post-build review, this time the Tamiya 1/35 scale Jeep. First up, let's take a look at this kit and what ScaleMates has to say about it. This is Tamiya kit number 35219. This was a new tool kit in 1997. After that, in 2012 and 2021, there were two SAS versions. The biggest difference was with those is they had new parts added. This will be my first Jeep kit that I've built in a very long time. Last one I built was back in the 80s, and it was the SAS version that was based off of the 1972 tooling of the Tamiya Jeep. I actually built the US Army version of that old Jeep kit, and then I also built the SAS version. Before that, back in the late 70s, when I was just a wee lad, I built the monogram version of the Jeep. So it's always been a really cool subject, and I don't think this one's going to be any different. So before we dig into this box and take a look at everything, I just want to kind of give you an idea of what to expect. In this video, we'll look at the box and we'll look at the contents, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I have planned for the build. Then once we're done with that, I will build the kit off camera in its entirety, most likely unpainted, and then I will come back and talk about the kit, talk about anything that I think needs to be pointed out, any pointers, any tips, anything like that. So without further ado, as they say, let's go ahead and dig into this box, see what's going on. Okay, for the normal stuff, it's top opening box, typical of Tamiya, nice painted art on the top, white background. On the side we have side, front, and rear view of the vehicle, and then some information in Japanese. Now this one here, it shows copyright 1997. Shizuoka, Japan on the side there. End art. This side here shows, wow, this must be what they had to do in order to license the actual name Jeep. So got that cool little illustration of the great outdoors here in the good old US of A. The real power of a legend is where it can take you. Jeep, there's only one. Chrysler Corporation, 1997. So anyway, that's kind of cool. Then it has a little illustration of some extra stuff here. We got a 30 caliber machine gun, some crew weapons, looks like an M1 Garand, and then a Thompson. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So that is the box itself. So let's crack it open to see what's on the inside. So we have the main body. You can see what size this is. We'll take them out of the bag in a minute, but it's a very small vehicle in 1/35 scale. But we have two plastic bags, well, three counting this, plastic bags with the sprues, all the plastic. Then we have the decals, instructions, and the good old Tamiya tech tips, as well as some information on the inside in multiple languages. It's interesting, this one here, I've never actually built one with this on it. It says Tamiya Europe GmbH, Firth Bay, Germany. So I just wonder if they still do that, if they have that kind of writing inside. But anyway, that's the box. So let's do a breakdown here of all the components of the box. First off, we've got Tamiya tech tips. These are real handy, especially for beginner modelers. Gives you tips on cutting off parts, removing excess plastic, different types of cements. Gives you an idea of what tools and materials that you would need to do the kit. more tips and such on the back. We got the instructions, and I'll keep this brief, but it's got in 3 different, 4 or 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different languages. Information about the vehicle, and then we have what I call a map style fold out instructions. Inside the front cover, more tool recommendations, cautions, the paint call out list here, all in Tamiya paints. Then we start with step 1, go on through the build. And then looks like there's 13 actual build steps. Then we get into the marking options here, A, B, and C, and D and E. So these are all U.S. Army. We've got 5th Armored Division, Summer 44 in Normandy. We've got Transportation Corps Truck Company, Red Ball Express. We've got January 45 Belgium, 7th Armored Division. Then we have 2nd Infantry Division, May 45 Czechoslovakia. And then we have 5th Army, 101st Military Police Battalion C Company, 1945 Italy. So marking options I will talk about later because I'm going to probably do something a little bit different. Next up we have the decals. Pretty good sized little sheet. Let's zoom in for such a small kit, but a lot of bumper markings, serial numbers, the stars, etc., convoy commander, pretty much basic stuff. But again, markings, I may be doing something a little bit different, but we'll get into that at the very end of the video. So as I'm unwrapping these sprues, I do have to say that in my experience, I can't ever recall, I'm not saying it's never happened, but I can't ever recall getting into one of these bags of parts and having anything broken off the sprues. I don't know if it's because they use good solid sprue gates that yet aren't too big, or, you know, just they're careful when shipping or what, but it's kind of nice not to have a bunch of little parts just hanging out in the bottom of the bag. Alright, first up we've got sprue A, part of the Jeep. We got some seat stuff here, engine parts, engine here. Looks like it's got just a real basic engine, but at least there's something. We got some rolled canvas items there. Tailgate, front windscreen frame, seats. Seats have nice texture on the canvas. There's wrinkles and such, so it'll look nice and it'll weather nicely. I remember the one I built from the early 70s. Those were just basically rectangular, smooth, you know, seat pads and cushions. So that's kind of a nice upgrade. I guess by 97 they were able to do a little bit more with that. But that's sprue A. Sprue B, we've got the wheels. We've got the extra weapons. We've got a fuel can here, Pioneer tools. Now I will say that this is kind of unusual, but it looks like we have some pretty decent, and by decent I mean pronounced, mold parting lines. So like along the edge of the tools here, it looks like on this direction here, like this shovel, there's hardly anything on that, but like on this handle, it's facing this way. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a pretty good mold seam line there, so I'll have to pay particular attention to that stuff and make sure I clean it up good. But it's only on some of the stuff. The guns, they don't look too bad. Tires, I mean, that's expected. They're pretty pronounced, but they look pretty thin, so it should be easy to clean up. And then we've got the figure here, and he's got a pretty good seam line going on along his shoulders, but he's a multi-part guy, so should be easy to clean. And I will be using that figure, and I will be painting him when it comes to the that portion of the build, which will be on another video. But all that looks good. One of the things that's nice about Tamiya, it's like, for example, you got these shock absorbers here. They're actually attached to the leaf springs. I'm sure there are some manufacturers that would do all that as separate pieces, and it's nice, but sometimes the extra detail that's like underneath or in places where you can't see it just makes it a little more difficult to build than I think is necessary. But anyway, that's Sprue B. Then we have the actual body of the vehicle, molded 1997 Tamiya. Now that is completely underneath the vehicle, and you're not going to see it at all, along with all these ejector pin marks. There are people that actually complain about that stuff, especially like this. Now, if that were like on here, I could see that being kind of a problem and kind of annoying, but when it's done in a place like that, it's just not a concern really. But that looks pretty good. Not a whole lot to talk about, just one piece there. Now I'll have to look. I don't think that seam is there on the real deal, so I'll probably have to clean that up, smooth that out really well. But other than that, looks good. All right, next up we've got Sprue C, which is the huge clear parts sprue. That is the two windscreen panels and the headlight lenses. So not a whole lot there, not a whole lot to talk about. So there you have it. That is the contents of the box. So I am going to turn this camera off and get cracking, and when you hear my dulcet tones once again, it will be with a completed kit. So be back in a flash. And here we are. Let's zoom in, shall we? All right, so here is the Tamiya 1/35 scale Jeep Willys quarter-ton 4x4 truck in all its glory. Now, as you can see, it's not painted. This wheel right here, you can see it's kind of wobbly, the spare. I've just got a blue tacked on there because I want to paint that off of the vehicle. Same with these wheels. These are all just resting on there, as is the figure. So I'm going to take him out and continue. So the figure, let's talk about the figure first. So the figure, it looks pretty good. The face has some pretty decent features to it. You know, it's a Tamiya figure. It's an older one, but the detail is not too bad. And for my purposes and what I do with figures, it's just fine. So I will, I mean, I don't have his helmet on yet, but I'll put that on after I paint him. But I will be painting him. I also have not installed the lenses for the headlights because I'll do that probably the very last thing I do, because I'll paint it, clear coat it, decal it, do some very light weathering, and then I'll do the headlights last. Let's use the instructions here and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that I did. So steps 1 and 2 are just I just basically did right off of the instructions. Pretty much everything, really. I just did right off the instructions, so I don't need those. This part here, it is not it's not glued in place. I'm going to detach that to paint it. I need to mask off the actual the glass part of the windscreen. But other than that, it's ready to go for paint. Normally, well, used to, I'm kind of shifting away from it, but used to, stuff like this I would leave off and paint later. But I went ahead and just put the whole thing together so you could see how it worked. And the fit is fine. It works great. There's not really anything to talk about, whoops, other than losing that wheel. Carpet Monster foiled again. It did roll quite a distance though. But anyway, everything fit well. One thing that I would say that I didn't care for too much was the installation of these tools. They didn't really have, I mean, they've got like locating pins, but it wasn't a very positive location, so you got to kind of monkey around with it and really look at the illustrations and such of the vehicle, especially, you know, in its completed form, so you kind of know how to line things up. But I mean, that's very, very minor stuff. The machine gun and everything, the detail on it's really nice. It all fit together nicely. The underside, I really didn't, the only place I used clamps was whenever I glued the body onto the frame. The chassis I used because it was, I glued it in the back first. Once that dried, there was just an ever so slight gap, and it wasn't really a gap. I mean, it was, but I mean, I barely touched it and it squeezed it together, and I could have put some glue in there and just held it for a few minutes and left it, but I went ahead and clamped it just because that's what I do. The one thing that was kind of unusual for a Tamiya kit was some of the seam lines, the mold parting lines, were quite heavy. Now, they were in places where it didn't really affect the shape of parts. And by that I mean, like, say you have a round part that is molded this way. Sometimes, you know, if the molds start getting worn out, you get seam lines that are this type of thing. You know, instead of being lined up, it's kind of shifted. So once you scrape that smooth, you end up with something that's more oval shaped than round. Okay, if that makes sense. Stuff like handles, axles, stuff like that. That wasn't the case here. It's just the mold seam lines were a little bit heavy. But they were easily removed. They weren't like real thick. They were just pretty pronounced. Now the one that went down the side of the framework here, the chassis, it was pretty heavy as well, but it's just a matter of scraping that flat because that's all supposed to be flat anyway. So other than that, it was fine. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this kit. It fit together really well. There was no surprises. You know, it's very, very quick build. I mean, this is one of those kits that could very easily be built in a weekend. And I'm talking built, painted, the whole shooting match. So the last thing I want to talk about the kit, and it's something I'd like to talk about on this channel, is how beginner friendly it is. Because I started this channel as a way to give beginning modelers some hints and tips and stuff like that. So I still like to kind of touch on whether or not a kit is good for a beginner or not. In this case, this is a beginner kit all the way. A beginner could build this with no problem. A more advanced builder could build it right out of the box and still end up with a nicely detailed vehicle. An advanced modeler could, I'm sure, get photo etch for it and, you know, super detail some other aspects of it. Especially since it does have a full engine. You can pose it with the hood open, and there is a decent engine in there. You can see the bottom of it right there, but there's more on the top, as illustrated right here and right here. Now, one of the, I think it's a nice thing. There are people who don't like this, but like all of these parts here, the top of the radiator, the hose, the battery, the air cleaner, all that stuff, it's all molded as one piece. Now, some people might say, oh, that's pretty wonky, but considering the price of the kit, considering how it looks and how it could be super detailed, one piece doesn't bother me at all. It just makes it that much easier to build. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I do believe this would be a very good kit for a beginner. Very inexpensive, not a whole lot going on, and it's a quick build. So there you have it. That ends this video of the Tamiya 1/35 scale Jeep Willys quarter-ton 4x4 truck. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked the format, and hopefully it was helpful to whoever needs help on something like this. keep an eye out in the not too distant future, and I will be accumulating the kits that I've built in this format that I haven't posted anything about in their completed form, and I will show you what they look like after paint and weathering. So anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and as always, if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe subscribe so you can keep up on what's going on around here, and if you liked the video, hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.